isn't done, at least not the CEO I want to be. And then someone else at another rite of passage asked me, this was before I got married, they asked me, do you ever want to get married? And I told them yes, and I told them it's in the, I told them I'm also planning for that, and here it is. So I have planned my life to have, you plan your professional and your personal life to ensure that things go accordingly. And so I'm grateful to God and my parents and everyone else who surrounded me. Sawa sawa. So hopefully I've earned the right to speak to you. So today, what we're going to be talking about are habits. Sawa sawa. We're going to be talking about habits. Usually I cover 7 habits, but because of the time I find that I'm never able to cover all of them. So I'm going to just cover the first 3, which are the most important. Okay? Usually I ask the audience this. Does anyone know what a habit is? Would anyone want to raise their hand and say what a habit is? No? Anyone brave? Yes? No? Sawa. So a habit is an action you do over and over again, right? To the point that it becomes second nature. You don't think about it. So for example, if the first thing, like I asked the students in rite of passage what they do, the first thing they do when they wake up is go to the bathroom. You don't think about it, it's a habit you do. Or the first thing maybe you do is pray. Then it becomes a habit, and that's what you always do. Or you brush your teeth, okay? What I would actually ask you is to cross your hands. Just cross your hands. The way you cross your hands like you're seated. Okay, now cross your hands the other way. That feels very awkward, right? The other way. But it's because you've taught yourself to cross your hands in one particular way. So that's a habit. You've put yourself into the habit of doing things in a particular way. Okay? So let me read to you a few stories here about other people in the same space that you're in, so that I tell you why we are talking about habits. Okay? And as I'm reading this, just think about whether you feel the same way about your life. So these are other people, young adults, who've been asked how are they doing. So this one is one, they say, there's too much to do and not enough time. I have school, homework, job, friends, parties, and family, and on top of everything else, I'm totally stressed out. There's another one who says, how can I feel good about myself when I don't measure up? Everywhere I'm reminded that there's someone else who is smarter, prettier, or even more popular. I can't help but think, if only I had her hair, her clothes, her personality, her boyfriend, then I'd be happy. I feel like my life is out of control. My family is a disaster. If I could only get my parents off my back, I might be able to live my life. It seems they're constantly nagging, and I can't ever seem to satisfy them. Another one, I know I'm not living the way I should. I'm into everything. Drugs, drinking, sex, you name it. But when I'm with my friends, I give in and I just do what everyone else is doing. Another one, I've started another diet. I think I'm on the 5th one this year. I really want to change, but I just don't have the discipline to stick with it. Every time I start a new diet, I have hope. But it's usually a short time before I blow it and I feel awful. I'm not doing well in school right now. If I don't get my grades up, I'll never get into university. I'm moody and get depressed often, and I don't know what to do about it. So I think with some of these scenarios, we've covered what you're going through. Even for me, one of this is I've started another diet. That's probably me. Or feeling like someone else is better than me. We all go through some of these thoughts in our mind. So these habits I'll be teaching you about will help you have control over these types of thoughts and overpower them and make you more empowered to be able to do more with your life. Okay? So first, I'm going to teach you, we're going to talk about habits of defective young adults. Then I'll teach you about habits of effective young adults. So as I'm teaching about the habits of highly defective young adults, think about them and think about whether you react in this way. So the first one is react. You just react to everything. You blame your problems on your parents, your stupid teachers, your lousy neighbor, your boyfriend or girlfriend, the government, something or someone else. You're a victim. You do not take any responsibility over your life. Like, think about the time during COVID. How many of us were upset with Magoha because he would close schools open and then we didn't know when we were doing anything? How many of us felt upset because that government was controlling our life? Sindio? Also, tusiogope sana because pastor and mama are here. Sawa sawa. Usually with the other classes, people, so please feel free to interact. Hamogopi Pastor Matara, sindio, Bishop? Mnamogopa? Si sana. Wacha asitoke, wacha kae, sindio? So let's tuchangamke kidogo. What have you been upset about? Wazazi wenu, parents? Right? Sometimes our parents get very nagging, wanatusumbua sana, our friends, all of that. Sawa sawa. The other one is, and if your parent yells at you, unamrudishia. How many of us do that? Kurudishia wazazi wetu, sindio? The other habit is you begin with no end in mind. So you don't have a plan. You avoid goals at all costs. You never think about tomorrow. So why worry about tomorrow when I can do what I'm doing today? So, for example, like during the holidays, how many of us have been studying? All we are doing is maybe watching TV. We don't want to think about the fact that we're going to a new class. We don't care about that. Hii ni holiday yangu, I just don't care. Another one is putting first things last. So whatever is most important, because I think you all know whatever is most important, you don't do it. Again, it goes back to najua mmepewa homework this break. But none of you, we may not be doing the homework because all we want to do is catch up on shows we haven't watched or catch up with friends. Another one is we think win, lose. We see life as a vicious competition, okay? So if your classmate is doing better than you, then humpendi because they're not where you are. So you're just constantly jealous of others. Another one is you seek first to talk, then pretend to listen. This is one I'm this is one I do quite a bit. I am not the best listener, even my husband will tell you, but I'm working on it. This one they say you're born with a mouth, and so you use it. So you talk, but you never listen to other people. Another one that's not good is you do not cooperate. You know, people are different from you, they don't know anything, you know better, so you never work with them. And then finally, the other one is wearing yourself out, unajichosha. You never take care of yourself. You don't eat well. You don't exercise. You don't sleep enough. You don't pray. So you never take care of your body, soul, and mind. So those are the habits that make you defective. So today I'm going to teach you habits of effective young adults. So this is a very powerful excerpt, and I would want you to write this, and then we'll repeat it. You know what sowing means? Sowing, like if you're a farmer, when you sow, you reap, right? What you sow, you reap. You understand what I mean by that? Sikushona. So if you sow a thought, okay? If you sow a thought, you reap an action. Ukipanda nini mfikiria, then, sorry, my Kiswahili. If you sow a thought, you reap an action. If you sow an action, you reap a habit. Because we said habits are repetitive actions. So if you sow an act, you reap a habit. If you sow a habit, you reap a character. Do we all know what a character is? Cindy, you can nod your heads. Do you know what a character is? And so then if you sow a character, you reap a destiny. Okay? If you sow a character, you reap a destiny. So let me ask you a trick question. If you want to change your destiny, what should you do? If you want to change your destiny, what should you do? So if you want to change your destiny, you need to change the way you think. Just change one thought in your life, and it's very simple. You don't have to do that much. Change how you think. And when you change how you think, you change how you act. When you change how you act, you change your habits. When you change your habits, you change your character. And when you change your character, you have a different destiny. Sawa sawa. So I say, like, for me, I'm very privileged to have come from parents who are very invested in my education and my future. Not all of us come from those types of backgrounds, or you may also be around friends who are not the best in terms of helping you move forward. So for some of us, we may be thinking, nimetoka kwa shida, nitakaa kwa shida, right? That's a thought. And if you're thinking, nimetoka kwa shida, nitakaa kwa shida, that is your destiny. Sawa sawa. But if you start changing how you think, and you say, it doesn't matter where I'm from, I'm going to change where I'm going to be, then that simple thought means your destiny has already changed. It's just as simple as that. You start thinking that all things are possible, right? Through Christ who strengthens me, Philippians 4:17. Then all things will be possible. And all those things that you wanted to do will happen. And, you know, Bishop always says these things in church, even in morning devotion when he has the dedications, you know, the affirmations that you say every morning. He doesn't say them just to say them so that there's something on the screen. He gives you a word to go meditate on every day so that your thoughts change. And if your thoughts come from the Word of God, because the Word of God are promises God has made to us and they're unchanging, if those thoughts come from the Word of God, then you know that you're on the right way. They are unchanging, and God doesn't lie. He always tells the truth. So, kama ni umesema nimetoka kwa shida, nitaka kwa shida, stop yourself and say no. Christ said all things are possible through him. Just stop it and say that. Just think that thought. And that's one of the pieces of homework I want to give you. Have that thought in your mind. All things are possible through Christ who strengthens me. If you think, my studies are not going well, just think about that. All things are possible through Christ who strengthens me. If you think I'm not beautiful enough, that's okay. Just start thinking about that thought and your destiny will begin to change. Okay? Because if you think nimetoka kwa shida, na nataka kwa shida, then you don't start making steps to take yourself out of those issues. You stay within that. So in the morning, think about it. In the morning, I wake up and I think I won't be able to do anything today. Guess what? I'll stay in bed and I won't do anything. Sawa. But if I wake up and I say I'm going to do all these things I had set out to do, then I get up and I do all those different things without a defeatist attitude. So remember, let's repeat this. So if you sow a thought, you reap an action, okay? If you sow an act, you reap. If you sow a habit, you reap. If you sow a character, you reap. So if I want to change my destiny, what do I do? Change and that's very easy to do. Sawa sawa. So even just that, as if you don't even come to morning devotion, watch it on YouTube every morning. Whatever affirmations are there, use that affirmation for yourself every day. Even the affirmation we have for 2022, advancing to the next level, that's a thought that you can hold on to, that I'm advancing to the next level, and you will advance to the next level. Actually, very quickly, let me give you a testimony. When I was applying to Harvard Business School, because at the time Stanford had rejected me, and I told mom, sijui kantaweza kuingia shule ingine, because if Stanford has rejected me, why would Harvard accept me? But then she told me kuja morning devotion. So I used to come to morning devotion every morning when I had a 2-week break in Kenya. So I would come, pray, and then even though I didn't believe in myself, nilikuwa tu najiskuma nasema, maybe God will listen to me. But that small step that I took to come every morning and pray, I was able to get into Harvard. And for every step, when I submitted the application, I fasted for a week. Before the results came out, I fasted for a week. Even there's an exam you do to get into the school. When I was doing the practice tests, I would get very low scores. Then I decided, one of my spiritual mothers told me, Diana, you should fast. You need to have crazy faith, and to have crazy faith, you need to do crazy things. So she told me, this is one of those, I think you need to fast. So I fasted. I got the highest marks. I even thought they were playing a joke on me because I had never gotten those high marks before. But I fasted, I prayed, and I got those marks. So I tell people I got into Harvard because I fasted and prayed throughout the whole journey. And that's how I got into the school. So you hata sikuingia by my own strength. But because I felt so down on myself, I thought I just needed supernatural power to remind me that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and that's what fasting did for me. So if also your thoughts are not in a place where you can empower and strengthen yourself, that's why I'll say lean on to the word of God. His promises never fail. Sawa sawa. So that's my testimony. I had forgotten that story actually. Okay, so the next thing we're going to learn about is a paradigm. Let me spell for you paradigm. It's P-A-R-A-D-I-G-M. P-A-R-A-D-I-G-M. So what paradigm means is the way you see something, your point of view, your frame of reference, or your belief. It's the way you see something, your point of view, your frame of reference, or your belief. Okay? So, how many of us are wearing glasses? Ni wangapi wamevaa glasses? Just raise your hands. Okay. So what happens when your glasses get dirty? What do you usually do? You wipe them, right? So you wipe them. Why? Because if they are dirty, you can't see very well through them. Okay. Let's think about another thing. Like if you're in a car and it's raining and it's muddy, Cindy, when it gets very dirty, what happens? What does the driver do? They turn on the windshields, the wipers, and they even spray water because you can't see through very well if the glass is dirty. So if your point of view is based on the wrong thing, then you won't be able to move forward. If my glasses are dirty, I'm probably going to fall because I can't see anything ahead of me. If the car, the windshield is dirty, the driver will get into an accident because they can't see ahead of them. So the reason I say this is we really need to look at our beliefs and our point of view. Where are they coming from? Why do you believe the things you believe about yourself? Okay? Is it because your friends told you you'll never amount to anything? Is it because for some of us, our parents told us we'll never amount to anything? Is that where your frame of reference or your point of view is coming from? So if your frame of reference is based on the wrong things and negative things, you'll never move forward. It's like you have dirty glasses or you have a car with a dirty windshield. So what do we need to do if we have the dirty windshield? We need to wipe it clean. We need to base our beliefs on the right things, which is why I go back to the Bible and the Word of God. As I say, I'm very lucky that I have parents who molded me very well and taught me to believe in myself, but that's not what happens to everyone. So that's why I say you should always base it on the Bible and the Word of God and what God says, and what God says about you. Sawa sawa. I would actually encourage you, as you're reading the Bible, to go highlight the things or the promises that God has said about you and use those as your frame of reference or your point of view. So where is our paradigm coming from? It's coming from the Word of God. Sawa sawa. And you'll never go wrong. So if your friend tells you, you're not tall enough, you're short, maybe for the guys, maybe something like that, and you say, I'm a masterpiece. God is the one who formed me in my mother's womb, right? So some of those things, when people just say all these lies over you, you need to change that belief about yourself and use the Word of God and what God said over you. And guess what? If you use that, then you'll have the cleanest glasses, the cleanest windshield, and you're able to drive forward without getting into an accident. So I'm going to read to you some quick negative paradigms of life that we have at this stage as young adults, okay? So we're going to talk about, these are called paradigms of life. So for us at this time, even actually as an adult, if I read these, I resonate with them. For some of us, our lives rotate around our friends, okay? If my friend says, do this, jump off a cliff, I will jump off a cliff because my friend said so, and I don't want to be left behind, okay? So your identity is based on having friends and being accepted by those friends, being popular, that you compromise everything about yourself because you want to be like, you want your friends to accept you. Another center that you could have is things. You just like material things, okay? You want the next phone, you want the next headphones, you want the next video game, the best shoes, jewelry. If you don't have those things, then your life is meaningless. Another one that you could have is a boyfriend or girlfriend-centered life, okay? Whatever my girlfriend says is what I do. Akisema nivae hivi, that's how I dress. If they say I should be disrespectful to my parents, that's what I do. If they say I should stay up all night texting with them, that's what I do, because they've said so. So whatever they say, I do. If they say jump, I say how high, okay? And the funny thing about this one is, and let me tell you a secret, is the more you cling on to that other person and do everything they want you to do, the more unattractive you become, just so you know. The more unattractive you become if all you do is center your life around this person. Wanachoka sana and they just disregard you, okay? So that's a secret. So what it means is you need to have your own life. Another one is, school-centered. School-centered. So this one is, you're in school to just get good grades. You're not there to learn. So what happens when you're just there to get good grades is it's very easy for you to kuibia mtihani, because you didn't go to class to learn. You, at all costs, you have to get the highest grade. So for you, it's very easy for you to go and steal that exam. But why are we in school? To learn, right? You learn well, you get good grades. But we're not there to get good grades. That's an outcome. What we are there to do is learn. Now, the best center to have is a principle-centered life. So your life rotates around principles, okay? Principles are core truths, things that cannot change. You go anywhere, it doesn't matter who you even believe in, principles are principles, okay? Let me give you an example of one, honesty. Honesty, hata ukuwe nani, everyone will define honesty as the same thing. Sawa sawa. Love is another principle. Respect is another principle. So these are things that are unchanging no matter where you go. So if you always have these as your compass in your life, as your true north, you will never change, okay? So let's think about that person who has a center as their friends. So your friends want to go to, I don't know, they want to go to a particular party, and to go to that party you need some amount of money to go there. You don't have that money. If you're a friend-centered person, you may go to your parents' phone and steal money from their M-Pesa, because you have to do everything to please your friends. But if you're a principle-centered person and honesty is that core principle, then you know I need to be honest to my parents. I can either go ask them for money, or you know that your parents don't want you to be engaging in whatever that party is if it's not the best, so you're honest with them. So these principles, or even respect, you respect your parents, you respect your teachers, those types of things. And if you look at, if I read these principles to you, honesty, respect, gratitude, fairness, integrity, loyalty, and responsibility, these are all truths in the Bible. They're in the 10 Commandments, right? So as long as you follow these principles, then you'll continue to remain true to yourself. Sawa sawa. So we need to live a principle-centered life. That's the type of Yeah, so that's the type of life we need to lead. Do you have any questions so far? And let me tell you something. I think, so now you're in high school, and yes, high school has all these issues that you face. I think for me, because I went to an all-girls school, my high school life was pretty tame. But when I went to university, and I went to university in a different country, I moved from an all-girls school to a school where it was 75% male and 25% female, okay? So crazy things were happening in that school. Actually, my mom was always concerned about, she would always call me, and Bishop doesn't know about this, but every evening, mom would call me and tell me, Diana, no usipate mimba. Like that was the only advice she would give me every day. And I'm like, Mom, I'm here to study, okay? And it would get annoying at some point, but I completely understand why she was saying that. But if I hadn't gone to school with those principles, because I will tell you, in university, the craziest things will happen. If I hadn't gone to university with those principles and a principle-centered life, I wouldn't be where I am. Because, you know, in university, you don't have your parents making any decisions for you. You don't have them waking you up in the morning. You don't have them telling you, don't go here, don't do that, don't drink, don't use drugs, don't this, don't that. They're not there. It's up to you to make decisions for yourself. And if you're not centering your life on principles right now, and you're not building that muscle, then it's going to be very hard when you get to university. And even in high school, I hear that you're facing these types of issues still. So please remember to live your life according to principles. Sawa sawa. So let's go to the first habit I want you guys to work on. And this one is called being proactive. Okay? Be proactive. So when I had told you guys that a defective habit is being reactive. Being reactive it means that you blame everyone else for your problems and you don't look at yourself. But when it comes to being proactive, you acknowledge that you have power and that you have the power to make a decision, the power to choose. That's why when we started and I told you it's up to you to choose whether you want to listen to me or not, I acknowledge that you have power in these sessions. Maybe some of you have been forced by your parents and you're just here, I'm not listening. And then there are some of you who are here intently listening. You have that choice to choose whatever action you want to do. Okay? So let me take an example here. Let me see. So let's say, just look to the friend on your right or your left. Let's say one of them decides to trip you. Like they put out their foot like this and they trip you. Utamfanya nini? Or let's say they decide to slap you. They just slap you or punch you if you're a guy. What would you do? What's your initial reaction? Si utamgonga. You'll be so upset and you'll be like, Menigonga, so I'm going to hit you too, right? So that's being reactive. That's being reactive, that someone has done something to me, so I'm going to do something back to them. Sawa sawa. But then when you're being proactive, you acknowledge that, so there is what is called a stimulus. I think wale mnafanya biology, you maybe understand that. Stimulus is something that triggers. It's a trigger. So there's a stimulus, and then there's an action. So if your friend does something bad to you, they punch you, and you quickly punch them back, you move very quickly from stimulus to acting. But the difference between human beings and animals is that we always have a choice. We can think through things. So if my friend punches me, I can stop and think about what should I do next. Should I punch them back or should I do something else? Okay? And I know that's a very simple example for you to understand this image. But yes, that's what differentiates us human beings from an animal, is that we have the choice to do something. So when you feel that your life is out of control, or my parents are doing this, my teacher doesn't like me, so I'm not going to listen in class, I'm going to be sleeping in class, nitamuonyesha. Like when I was a kid and mom would punish me, I remember I would make it up in my mind that I'm going to run away from home. I'll make her feel bad and I'm going to run away and she's going to be so upset. But then I would stop and then I would think, I guess maybe even as a little kid, there was some proactiveness. I would stop and think and I'm like, nimeona chokora uko nje. They live a very tough life. Afadhali nikae hapa niendelee kuchapa, but at least I have food, na ninaoga, na ninalala mahali. So then I would stop and then ninasema siwezi kutoroka niende mahali. But those are the types of things. So if your parent yells at you, you yell back at them. But have you ever stopped to think about why your parent is yelling at you? I don't think there's any parent who wants to live their life yelling and yelling at their kids. Right? Even Bishop will tell you, if I think it's a parent's dream, if your kids just behave well all the time, atachukua vacation, aende holiday mahali aseme, wacha wanafanya vizuri. I don't think any parent wants to yell at their children because it's very painful. Hata kuwachapa, no one wants to do that. But I think at some time tunafikirianga, these parents of ours. Actually, yesterday there's this friend of mine who was telling me that their child called them a mad woman. They're like, Mom, sometimes you behave like a mad woman because you just like yelling and yelling at me. And you nilisikia uchungu sana for that mother, because the mother is trying to correct their behavior, so they don't go down the wrong road. Sawa sawa. So if your parent yells at you, rather than yelling back, slamming the door, makufanya nini, think about, why is my parent yelling at me? So that's the choice. You can choose what to do next. So rather than yelling at your parent, maybe apologize. Mwambie, that's not what I was intending to do. This and this and this is what I was intending to do. So let me read to you a very quick story about this guy. Let me quickly find it. Yes, let me read you a very quick story about this guy who was truly proactive, and he encourages me a lot. I would actually advise you to look for him on YouTube, because when you see him, you will be quite shocked by how he took control over his life. Okay, so his name is W. Mitchell. I'll just read from here. So this guy says, it's not what happens to you in life. It's not about what happens to you in life. It's what you do about it. So he's a self-made millionaire and a sought-after speaker. He's a former mayor and a skydiver. And all these things, you remember when I say he's a self-made millionaire and used to be a mayor, he did this after his accidents, okay? So I'll walk you through his life, his accidents. So if you see Mitchell, you'd find this hard to believe. This guy's face is a patchwork of multicolored skin grafts. So ukichomeka mwili, what happens is, your skin inachomeka, so you're left without skin. So then what they do is they harvest skin from other places and then they patch it on your skin. So this is what this guy looks like. Kuna wakati alichomeka to the point that they put skin grafts on his body. And then the fingers of both his hands are missing. Vidole hana, he just has this part. It's just stabs. That's how his life is right now. And he's paralyzed. Hawezi kutembea. So what happened to him? So on June 19th, he was on top of the world. So the day before, he bought a beautiful new motorcycle. That morning, he'd soloed in an airplane for the first time. So he was young, healthy, and popular. So this is what he says. That afternoon, I got on a motorcycle to ride to work, and at an intersection, a laundry truck and I collided. The bike went down, crushed my elbow, and fractured my pelvis. Okay? The gas can opened on the motorcycle. So mahali mafuta inawekwa. The gas poured out, and the heat of the engine ignited it, and I got burned over 65% of my body. So luckily, the person in the nearby car was able to get a fire extinguisher and save his life, but 65% of his body had been burnt. His face had been burnt off, his fingers were black, charred, and twisted. Everything was burnt. Let's just say everything was burnt. So for 4 months, he had 13 blood transfusions, 16 operations, and many other surgeries. And for 4 years, he spent his life in rehab, learning to adapt to his new handicaps. Sawa. Then, amechomeka, 65% of his body. Then, as life would have it, he was involved in a freak plane crash after he got better, after 4 years. And so when he was in the plane crash, he was trying to help someone get out of that plane crash, and then kuna kitu ilimwangukia kwa miguu, and so he lost the use of his limbs. Okay? But if you meet this guy, if you meet him right now, he's so empowered. And so he met someone who told him, so what he usually says is, before everything happened to me, there were 10,000 things I could do. So this is how he thinks about his life. Before all this happened to me, there were 10,000 things I could do. Okay? Now there are 9,000 because he's lost his fingers, his legs. There are 9,000 things he can do. And he could spend his life dwelling on the 1,000 that he's lost, but he's chosen to focus on the 9,000 that are left. Okay? And so what he says is his secret is love, encouragement of his family and his friends. But it's that the second thing that's helped him is that personal philosophy, that he can either choose to focus on the positive or the negative. So you see how he's so proactive. If anyone had the right kukaa kwa kitanda and he'd be depressed and he does nothing with his whole life, it's this guy, because he has no use of his body. Mwili wake ufanyi much. But if you see him, and I encourage you to go on YouTube, as I said, and look for a guy called W. Mitchell. He has a wheelchair, he's able to move himself around, anaweza kuandika. I don't know how he writes with the hand the way it is, but he became a mayor, he's now a millionaire, he's a speaker, and all of this he did after both of his accidents, because he chose to look at things differently. Okay? He chose to look at things as, this bad thing happened to me, I can choose to constantly focus on this bad thing that happened to me and stay there, or I can choose to focus on the life that I have left and do something about it. So that's what being proactive means. Something happens to you, you have an action that you can do, but in between you have a choice. So constantly think about that. Whatever trigger you have, as I said, maybe it could also be bad grades. Maybe you're not doing well in school. You could choose to just think, I'll never amount to anything. And so I'm not going to study, I'm going to give up. Or you could choose to be like this guy and say, okay, these are bad grades, this happened at this time, but you know what, I have choices that I can make. I can go use my teachers and tell them I need help in these certain areas. I can study more, sawa sawa. I can even talk to my parents, pengine ninunuliwe kitabu or these other things. I can choose to also switch off my device and spend more time doing these things. So all to say, you are empowered in how you react. Sawa. There is a stimulus, an action, but in between there is a choice. You can choose what you do. You can choose how to act. So always focus on the positive things. Always focus on what is left. On all those things that you have left. Anyone have questions about being proactive? So when your friend punches you, what will you do? Mtamgonga pia? You'll first think about what the best action is. Sawa sawa. Okay? So how many of us will look for that story about W. Mitchell? Mtamtafuta? Naona Ruth atamtafuta. But yeah, just go look at him. It's a very sad but very inspiring story. Okay? The second one we'll talk about is beginning with the end in mind. Beginning with the end in mind. So beginning with the end in mind is just as simple as having goals. Having goals and working through those goals. So when I was teaching Teacher Ruth and the Democrats teachers about this, I won't take you through this exercise because it's more, I think, for more mature, older people, but I'll tell you about the exercise. What they recommend you do is you close your eyes and you imagine yourself at a funeral. And when you get to the casket, you find that it's your picture over there. And what the exercise tells you to do is to think about what your spouse, your children, your friends, your enemies, what they would write in your eulogy based on how you're living your life right now. And then, so what that exercise does is it prompts you to change how you're living right now, because you would want people to say specific things about you. So when we're talking to young adults, I would ask you guys to think about the current friends you have in school, at home, and even the enemies you have in school and at home. What would they say about you? Let's say Nimna graduates Form 4, and they're up there reading something about you and about your accomplishments because you're winning an award. What would your best friend say about you? What qualities do you have? What would that person that you don't like at all and they don't like you, what would they say about you? And those things that they are saying about you, are they true? Is that what you want said? Do you want people to say you are kind? Do you want people to say you are selfish? What are they saying about you right now? Do you want them to say, hey, this person is lazy, hakuwa naamka, they never used to bathe, whatever it is? Or do you want them to say something different about you? What will your friends, what will your enemies say? Or let's say, even at that graduation party, what will your mom or dad say about you when they're up there? Will you even have that graduation party? Will you finish mtamaliza masomo? Let's start with that. The second thing is, at that graduation party, will you have made your parents proud enough to the point that they want to say something good about you? Ama ni lazima watafutilie. Okay? So beginning with the end in mind is thinking about what legacy you want to leave behind. And we may be, you may think I'm young, I'm not thinking about a legacy, but everywhere you go, you leave a legacy. Kindergarten mahali ulikuwa, walimu wako, there's something they know about you, and there's a way they refer to you, or there's a way they remind themselves about you. Primary, there's a legacy that you left. High school, there's a legacy you left. Sawa sawa. When someone says your name, what do they associate it with? And those are the actions or the things that you're doing right now are the ones that are building your legacy. So the reason we talk about beginning with the end in mind is you shouldn't just wake up every day and do something because you're doing it, be on auto drive. You need to think about your future and who you want to be. It's even as simple as, in a month, where do I want to be? In 3 months, where do I want to be? For those of us in Form 4, we now have 6 months to go, and it's KCSE. What am I doing today that is going to get me to that goal that I have in 6 months? Sawa. So we constantly have to have goals. You write down your goals somewhere, and actually someone gave me advice is, if you have a goal in your head, it doesn't amount to anything. You need to write it down, because it's a commitment to yourself. It's a promise you've made to yourself. So whatever goal you have in life, are you living your life the way it's meant to be to achieve that goal? Sawa sawa. So does that make sense? So you begin with the end in mind. Then when you know what end you want it to be, whatever it is in a month or 3 months, you start living accordingly. Does that make sense? Okay. So a couple of things. So right now, and even at this point, I would say it's super important. Let's talk about one thing that we face a lot is actually some of the questions that we face right now. Okay? Do you want to go to university? How many of us want to go to university? Okay, most of us. Not everyone has raised their hand, but that's okay. So if you want to go to university, are you living your life in that way? Okay? Do you want to graduate school? These are things you should be asking. What types of friends should you have? Okay? What values are you choosing? What kind of relationships do you want with your family? How will you contribute to your community? Those types of things. Others here that are also a bit controversial. Will you have sex before marriage? Will you drink? Will you smoke? Will you do drugs? Right? These are all things that we need to be thinking about based on the end that we have in mind. So many of us have said that we want to go to university. Okay? Will drinking get us to university? Kukunywa pombe? No. So then we shouldn't be doing that based on the end that we have in mind. So for example, using my life, When I went in Form 2 is when we went to America for the first time, and I knew I wanted to be a chemical engineer. And I knew the type of life, like I knew how rigorous that program would be. And I knew I wanted to go study outside in the United States. So mamangu aliniambia, if I behave very well in high school, then she'll allow me to go to university outside of the country. So because I began with the end in mind, I never got into any trouble in high school, because if I did, then that would have taken away from my dream. Okay? When I went to university, yes, I had fun, and it was okay at that point because I was more mature and more grown up. Responsible fun, but I had fun. But I began with the end in mind, and so that ordered my high school. Another thing is to apply to American universities, they don't look at your KCSE, they look at your grades from Form 1. So I made sure from Form 1 I was getting very, very good grades. Because when I was applying, I showed them all my report forms from Form 1, Term 1, Form 1, Term 1 to Term 3, waliona report forms zote. Actually, I got into university kabla KCSE toke. But it's because I had read this is what is needed to get into this type of university, so I ordered my life that way. They needed recommendations from my teachers, from all my teachers. So what did that mean? I had to be very respectful to my teachers, so they would write very good recommendations for me. I needed to be a leader in the community. So one, in school I was a prefect for all 4 years, and then I used to volunteer at a hospital in Form 3 and Form 4, so that I would also have that volunteer work sent to the university in America. So as early as Form 2, I had started beginning with the end in mind. So let me challenge you. How many of we've raised our hands and we say we want to go to university? Do we know what university we want to go to? Do we know what we want to major in? Have you started doing research to find out what is needed for these things we want to major in? Like if I stayed in Kenya, I knew I was going to do medicine and I knew I had to get all A's. So even those languages like English and Kiswahili, I think I would always get C's or B's, but I knew I had to pull them up to an A. So nilisoma sana ndio nizipate. What do you want to study? If you want to do pharmacy, you want to get into business, what are you making decisions today in your life that are getting you to that dream? Sawa sawa. How many of you may research universities zile mnataka kuenda? Bado. Ama? Nani ame research? I see someone else. That's very good. Sawa. So spend time doing that. Research those universities. And then also reach out to your parents, to the community. Even in this church, there are people who've gone to those universities, who've done specific programs. Go ask them, what did you do to get into this program? If you don't do that, if you don't begin in the end in mind, you'll end up with an end that you didn't want. And there's nothing as bad as having a life with regrets. But if you start planning it now, you'll be able to get there. So mnaona me as early as Form 2 nilikuwa ninafanya hivyo. In Form 3, actually Form 2 and Form 3, I was doing entrance exams to get into universities in America, because you start doing them in Form 2 and Form 3. And then in Form 4, as I was studying for KCSE, I was also doing applications za kutoka nje. Because I had planned my life, nilikuwa najua I want to go outside to do this, so I put in the work. Because I've also talked to people who say, I would love to go to this university or that university, how do I do it? Na ninamwambia, these are the steps that you do to take. Another story I tell people is when I was to get the A's, that's another one. To get the A's, as early as Form 3, because my mom is a teacher, and she's very strict and very passionate about education, I used to sleep at 10, wake up at 2 a.m. So for Form 3 and Form 4, nililala masaa mangapi? Manne. So these days I love sleeping, and when anyone asks me, unalala sana, naambia no. Form 3 and Form 4, I sacrificed a lot, even when I was doing engineering. And let me tell you, what mom would do is nikiamka, anaweka godoro hapo ninasomea. Anaweka godoro, analala hapo to support me as I studied. Akiona ninasinzia, ananiamsha, ananiambia we, endelea kusoma. I would be told, bring a bucket of cold water and dip your feet in the bucket of cold water, and you stay awake. So that was my Form 3 and Form 4. Na nikapata A's. I don't even know I didn't make it to Kenya 1 with all of that, but I guess sikuwa na capability. But I began with the end in mind. My mom also had end in mind for me. My dad had end in mind for me. Sawa. So when you're saying that your grades are not high enough, mnafanya vile mimi nilifanya. Ni wangapi wenu wanaweka miguu kwa maji baridi ndio mkae awake? So kufika mahali nimefika, and to get to where I did, a lot of action, a lot of work has gone into it. But I started with a goal, and I thought about what is needed. For that one where I say that my mom had the end in mind, she knew, I used to go to a day school. So she knew that in boarding schools, students used to study all night. So alikuwa anasema, uko day school, wake up, study. And I remember the first time she told me to study for 4 hours, to sleep for 4 hours. I was like, Mom, a normal human being sleeps for 8 hours. I'm only doing 6 hours. Hey, karibu ni chapo usiku, for mouthing off to my mother and saying that. And then from there on, it was 4 hours, 10, I would sleep at 10, wake up at 2 ninasoma. So I'm not saying you do that, but I'm saying if you're there and you're saying, see, I'm not able to do this and I'm not able to do that, you need to ask yourself, what price am I willing to pay to get to what I want? And you first need to count the cost. Sawa? And even the Bible says that. So you start with, this is what I want to do. Some of us say we want to be doctors. Have you talked to a doctor to find out what they went through ndio wafike mahali wako? Okay, so you have a goal, you say I want to be a doctor. Then go talk to a doctor. Hata kuna daktari anakuja after me. Muongeleshe muulize, what did you do to be a doctor? Then the reason you do that is you find out the price of becoming a doctor. Then you have to examine, can I pay that price? Am I willing to pay that price? Sawa sawa. For me, I was willing, na nilifanyia hiyo kazi, na sasa niko engineer, nimeenda Harvard, na niko hapa. So you always need to count the cost for all your decisions, and are you willing to pay the price? I would say be willing to pay that price, because on this other side of things, life is sweet, life is really good, okay? Because these days I can do pretty much anything I want to do, because I've financially empowered myself with the types of decisions I've made along the way. Sawa sawa. I hope I didn't scare you too much, but start with the goal. Once you've put the goal down, find out what the price is to get to that goal. And then ask yourself, am I willing to pay the price to do this? And then order your life to do that. Sawa sawa. Mmeelewa vile ninasema? Okay. So what I would ask you to do is, we now have 6 months left for the school year. Right? So I think people said they were in different stages. Kuna wale wako Form 2, Form 3, Form 4. So for the ones who are in Form 4, it's as simple as write down the grade you want to get for KCSE. Even actually do it right now. Write it down in your book, and then do some introspection and think about what does it take to get to that grade. And as soon as we are done with this, start living your life to get to that grade. And whatever grade you put down, for me it was an A, for you it may be an A minus, B plus, whatever it is, whatever is your best, put it down. And don't even share it with me. And then think about what it takes. So Form 3, Form 2, what I'll ask you to do is think about who you want to be in 6 months. Who do you want actually let's do it this way. What do you want your parents to say about you in 6 months? Andika hapo, just write it down very quickly. Write that down quickly, please. And then later on tonight, think about what steps you have to take, for as simple as, what will my parents say about me? Christmas, watasema nini? Watasema huyu amenikula kichwa, my hair is turning white. Or will they say, this person has been an angel, wamesoma, and then when they are home, wananisaidia na kazi. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. So it's just as simple as beginning with the end in mind. So we are taking a 6-month outlook of where we want to be in 6 months, and today we are committing to taking those steps. So Nona, I already trust that you're adults, and that you can think about what goals you have. Simwambi, this is what you should do. This is what your goal should be. No. I'm telling you, put your goal down and then take steps to get to that goal. Sawa sawa. See, 6 months is quite easy. Ama? 6 months isn't easy. For some of us, where we are, Teacher Ruth, as we don't think 6 months, to go 5 years, 10 years planning, isn't it? Yeah. So let's start with 6 months to one. And remember, don't sell yourself short. Remember what we said about paradigm and our thoughts? If you think you can do something and you start changing your thoughts, that will change. Meandika what you want to do. Okay? Another exercise I would love you to do, and we don't have time for this, I've done this before. I went to a conference where we were told to write ourselves a letter. And you can choose to do this. You write yourself a letter that you give yourself in 3 months. And so even we had those letters and we mailed them, alafu tukazipata. It was very interesting what I wrote to myself. But you can also think about what do you want to say to yourself in 3 months. Mweke, you put that paper aside. After you can give it to someone trusted, they give you back in 3 months. And you can see, this is where I was in 3 months. Have I done what I committed to do within those 3 months? Okay? Sawa. So that was begin with the end in mind. Okay? So the next one we have here is putting fast things first. Putting fast things first. So this one, the exercise I'll have you do is think about this morning when you woke up. What were the first 5 things you did? Just take a minute and think about the first 5 things you did in the morning. Sawa? Okay. So in those first 5 things you did, was God part of the first 5 things you did? Did we pray in the morning? This is just, think about this for yourself. I'm not asking you to raise your hand. Did you pray? How many of you talked to your parents or to your siblings in those first 5 things? How many of us did an action that was not for us, to benefit us, but to benefit someone else? Okay? So first exercise. Second thing, let me ask you, if I ask you what's important, what do you value the most? What would you put down? Just the first 3 things, what do you value the most? I think most of us will say God, kwa vile tuko kwa we're in church, right? We'll also say family. Some of us will say food or health. During rite of passage, people said money is something else that they value quite a bit. Friends, okay? The reason I asked you to say the first 5 things you did this morning is we can say what's important to us, but do we actually live our lives by what we say is important to us? Right? So there's a disconnect between we say it's important, but we actually do things that are not based on those values. And so then what that means is they are not important to us. So putting first things first means putting what's important first. Sawasa is just as simple as that. So what do you guys think is important? Maybe raise your hands, or we don't raise our hands. What's important? Who wants to give an example? No one? Okay, do we agree God is important? Yes. Family? Okay. Friends? Which one else do we have? Health? Okay. Which one else do we have there? What else haven't I said that you guys are thinking of that's important? For you guys right now, school is important, right? Education is important, right? Sawa, sawa. So, as I said, when I'm talking to Like if I was giving this to more of adults, I would have them look at their whole week and look at how much time they've spent on different activities. I actually ask people, when was the last time you called your mother? And you'll be quite it's quite funny, because with adults they'll say, oh, family is important, napenda mamangu, but the last time they talked to their mother was a month ago. So what I'll ask you guys is, today maybe you interacted with your parents in some way. What conversation did you have with them? Was it a conversation where you expressed gratitude, mliwaambia asanti? Or is it one where you mliendelea kuwauliza kitu o msinisumbue? Have you ever thought about how much work it takes for your parents to put food on the table? Mmewaambia asanti for putting food on the table. Just something as simple as that. So I won't ask you, have you talked to your mother, but what type of conversation did you have with your mother? What type of conversation did you have with your father? Was it one of gratitude, or was it one of complaining? What type of conversation did you have with God? So number one, did you have it with God? And then number two, what type of conversation did you have with God? One thing my husband is actually always encouraging me to do is, he always tells me, Diana, it's good to take your problems to God, and it's what you should do, but we should always remember to also show him gratitude, because he's done so much for us, and everyone feels good when someone tells them thank you. Sawa. So it's also another thing we forget to do with God, is just as simple as telling him thank you for waking up. Just something as simple as that. Okay, so let's think about, there are 4 types of people that we may be. So ningetaka mfikirie how you do your actions every day. So number 1 is the person called the procrastinator. So for me, I actually fall into this quite a bit, or my mom says I fall into procrastinating quite a bit. So this is the one who waits until the exam is tomorrow, ndio unasomea. You're always late to class. You wait until homework is due for you to do it. So you're always waiting for things to be urgent, for the important things to be urgent to do them. Sawa. There's another one called the yes man. So the person who says yes to everything. So you pick up every phone call. If a notification comes on your phone, you constantly look through it. Okay? And this is a person who is very, very susceptible to peer pressure. So this is a person who does the things that are urgent but not important, the yes man. And then kuna huyu mwingine anaitwa the slacker. So the slacker is always watching too much TV. They play too many games. They're always binge watching shows. They waste time. That's the slacker. And what they're always doing is they're doing not urgent and not important things. But where we want to be is to be the prioritizer. And I'm also hoping, it's tough, even for me, it's something that I try to do, but we are all work in progress. So the prioritizer, you plan, you set goals. You know that your homework is due in a week, so unaianzia mapema. You leave time for important relationships. So like family, friends, your siblings, you leave time to pray, you leave time to relax. Okay? So what do we want to strive to be is, we want to strive to be the prioritizer. Sindio? So, So what happens when you are the procrastinator? So the person who waits until the last minute to do things, is you're constantly stressed, you're anxious, you burn out, and most of the time your performance is poor. It's not the best. So if you're given a project and you do it the night before, itafanyika vizuri? No, right? But if you took the time to do it, it would be well done. Then we have the yes man. The yes man is known to please everyone. So huyu akisema hivi unasema yes, let's do it. This one says this, let's do it. And you also lack discipline. Then the slacker just doesn't have any responsibility. They're always guilty, and they are known as flaky. Mnajua flaky, what it means? Huna msimamo. So your friends just know you as huna msimamo, because you're always doing the things that are not urgent and are not important. But the prioritizer is someone who has control over their life, they have balance, and they are a high performer. Like I remember when I was in high school, what I would do is I would write short notes. Mnaandikanga short notes? Mnajua short notes ni nini? Ama muandiki? Mnajua ni nini? Sawa. So I remember in Form 1 niliandika short notes zangu. I had a big book. Form 2 nilikuwa nazo. Then I would go back, revise my short notes, and even make them shorter and shorter and shorter. So by the time I got to Form 4, when I was doing the Form 1 exams, the Form 1 things that I had learned were here on my fingertips, and I didn't have to go back to the textbook and read them. So you see, in that way, I was a planner, and I actually had a timetable for the subjects I would study every night. So I knew, so you have your homework, kuna homework ile mmepewa na mwalimu, but I also had my own studying that I would do. So I knew that on Monday I would study maths and something else. And if I knew like a subject was very heavy and not easy for me, I would put it with an easier subject for me. So like maths was easy for me, so I would put it with Kiswahili that was hard for me. And then I would start with the harder one, then go to the easy one. Okay? But I was constantly prioritizing and planning. So I always had a timetable ya vile nitasoma. I knew exams are coming on a certain date. I knew I have to cover all this material by that certain date. And on all those timetable, on all those pieces of, on the timetable, I would take it a step further and say, these are the topics I'm going to read through this week. Na hizi ndio zimebakia. Na hizo zimebakia, do I have enough weeks left for that next exam? Mnafanyanga hivyo? No? Yes? Ama we just study very quickly and then we go into the exam? Like when are you having your next exams? End of term 1 ni lini? Ama hatujui? We don't know. So I think end of term 1 is maybe in 2 months. You know you're going to be sitting for exams. Have you started preparing yourself for that? You only have 2 months. Have you started preparing for if you're in Form 2, ni lazima you have to be examined for Form 2 term 1 and Form 1. Have you prepared your study plan so that you do well in your exams? So that's what it means, putting first things first, is you know something is coming, so you begin to plan it out. Sawa sawa. Just as simple as that is planning, planning, planning. So whenever you're studying, make sure you have a plan. But even beyond that, with putting first things first, it's knowing these are the important things that we need to do. So you remember we started with putting our goals down, okay? Then when we put our goals down, we counted the cost. We said this is the price we have to pay. And then we said these are the actions that we have to do to get to that particular goal. Then when you know what those actions are, then you make a plan to be able to accomplish those actions. So nimemwambia, like one thing for me, I was very honest, I said is maybe I do this diet and then that diet and then that diet. So let's say I want to lose weight, for example, an easy one. What I would do is I would say, let's say I want to lose 5 kgs in 6 months. Sawa sawa. I would start by saying, ni lazima, I have to eat well and I have to work out. Sawa sawa. Now, with eating well and working out, if I just say that I want to eat well and work out, and I don't make a plan for it, 6 months itakuja na 5 kgs, I won't have lost them. But I need to make a plan for that. So I need to exercise every day, or exercise 5 times a week. Then I have to look at my timetable, niangalie, when will I be able to exercise? Pengine ni asubuhi. If it means eating healthy, then I have to make the time to cook, and cook good food, and then I have to make the time to go and buy that food. So it's as simple as what I was telling you guys. So like the people in Form 4, you've put down the grade that you want. Sawa. And you've counted the cost. Mesema, these are the actions that I need to take. So the next thing you need to do is put down a plan. Okay? So mnaangalia timetable. How is your timetable in school? How much time do I have for studying? How much time do I have for these other things? What are the weak subjects? What things do I need to spend more time on? How much time do I need to spend on those things? If I'm weak on this and on that, I need to set up meetings with my teachers. Ndio niende wanifunze. Right? So that's what it means to put first things first, is you need to plan. Si kuenda tu just like that. These things don't happen just like that without a plan. you always have to have a plan for what you want to accomplish. Okay? Sawa sawa. The other thing, I know I've talked a lot about planning for school, but in terms of also putting first things first, we've talked about God and family being first thing first. So I remember when it was rite of passage, I challenged those guys because most of them were coming from class 8. Like, I know in Damacrest, in the morning at 4 a.m., I always hear our candidates wako praise and worship, wanaomba sana, which is great. But then I challenged them, nikawauliza, how many of you mmetoka class 8, mnaenda form 1, how many of you will continue that praying that you are doing in class 8? Ama tunangoja Mungu tu wakati wa KCB na KCSE. That's when we mostly go to church na ndio tuna praise na tuna worship. Mnaelewa? Because even me, I remember when I was during exam time, I went to a Catholic school. So that's when I would be in the chapel a lot with a rosary. At the time, I was a Catholic. Hapo ndio unaomba because unahitaji. You need God's help at that time. And then when the exams go away, unasahau and you do whatever. So what I would encourage you to do is those prayerful habits you had when you had this big thing coming up, KCP, KCSE, the ones who are in Form 2, Form 3. Continue to have those prayerful habits because we need God, not just for exams, but we need Him in the day-to-day and for the small things. Putting first things first. Weka Mungu mbele. Wake up in the morning and just give Him a word of gratitude and tell Him thank you for the things that you have. Even thank you for being alive. Thank you, niko na kitanda, niko na food. Those types of things. So continue to put Him first. Second thing tumesema is family. And this is the other piece of homework I want to give you, is your parents have made a sacrifice kumleta hapa, si ndio? Ama si wamemeka sacrifice, wamesema mkuje hapa? Ama ni nyinyi, okay, pengine mmejileta. So some of it may not be that case, but something as simple as telling your parents, thank you for allowing me to come here. Thank you for facilitating the fact that I'm here. I don't think I had this opportunity to come to something like this, where my mind would be opened up and I would grow and I would listen to other people. So my homework to you is think about something good your parents have done for you, and mkienda nyumbani as soon as this, go tell them thank you for what you've done. Because in that way you're putting your family second, your parents second, God and then family. The other thing is, how many of you have young siblings? Mkona younger brothers and sisters? Mko now? When was the last time you did something with them? Mnafanyanga, do you do anything with them? Something fun? Mnawasaidia kusoma, or you just do something fun? The reason I say this is at this age, many of us don't want to be bothered by the younger ones, because, you know, but wako they want to, they look up to you. The reason I say this because my brother also moved to the he's 5 years younger than me. He also moved to the US, and we were the only ones alone there. And whenever I was in trouble, the first person I would pick up and call is my brother. Amenisaidia through so many things. But if I didn't have that relationship with my brother, if we had a very bad relationship when we were kids, angenisaidia, apana, right? He would have just said, go away, because there are people who don't have the best relationships with their siblings. But I was able to put first things first when I was younger. I was able to grow that relationship with him, and we've kept that relationship going. Even now, if I'm in trouble, sipigi mamangu, sipigi babangu. You call your parents and what happens? Wanaanza kupigia kelele before they help you. Sindio? But when you call your siblings, they don't even ask questions. They are there to help you. If I need money for something, nitambia bro, you know, send me something on M-Pesa. He won't ask me why. I'll tell him I'll pay him at a certain time. Lakini nikiuliza babangu, it'll be, why do you need this? To me, pesa zako vizuri, si unalipwa, nini. Like, he'll go into so many things and give me a long lecture about how I need to be better at managing my finances. And then hata pengine sitapewa. My dad is very strict when it comes to money. But my brother, I tell him, I need this because this is happening. Like, there was a time nilikuwa kwa duka and then I didn't have enough on my M-Pesa. So I called my brother and kamwambia, hey, send me 500 because I don't have enough. Akanitumia. But I tell you, babangu nikimwambia, Diana, Umeenda kwa duka. Now you knew that you were going to buy this and this and this, and you didn't have 500 extra, so you're given a long lecture and all of that. So the reason I say this is those siblings of yours, even as young as they are, because with the older ones, we tend to look up to them. The younger ones, we disregard them. Make sure you put things first and culture those relationships with your siblings. Because what happens is, like the friends I had in high school, in primary, they are somewhere there, lakini siwakumbuki. Because we tend to focus so much on the friends that we have, and you forget all these other people. You forget your family, you forget your siblings, and they're the ones who will help you, and they're the ones who will be there with you from beginning to the end. Your friends, if you're lucky enough, you may have, like I have 1 or 2 friends where we were friends since we were kids. But let me tell you, your brothers, your sisters, those are the people who will be there for you throughout your life. So make sure you're putting time you're spending time with them. Putting first things first. Then the final thing tumesema ni health. Sawa sawa. I know you're young right now, so amfikiri mambo mengi ya health, your body's in a snap back haraka hivi. But when it comes to health, make sure you're eating well. Mnakula vizuri. Our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. And make sure you're doing some exercise. So mnasaidia nyumbani, shambani, in the house. You're cleaning, sawa sawa, and you're taking walks here and there. You're getting the appropriate amount of sleep. You're resting, those types of things. So make sure you're constantly taking care of your bodies, so that, because this is the only body we've been given, if you use it badly, hupati ingine. Unfortunately, that's how it goes. So make sure you're putting first things first. So even that means, as we're talking about being healthy, that means alcohol is not healthy. If we put everything aside, morality and everything, alcohol, ukikunywa unapata, you get so many diseases. So tuweke you aside. Drugs, another thing, that's not healthy. Tusifanye hizo vitu. So make sure you're keeping your body healthy and keeping it holy. Sawa sawa. Even when it comes to things like, we talked about sex before marriage, don't do that. Make sure you're keeping your temple holy. Putting first things first. Okay? And then, please do that exercise I asked you to do of thinking about who you want to be, and then asking, like, if there are any of you here who want to be engineers, mnaweza kuja mniongeleshe mniambie what did it take to be an engineer. But I think I've told you some of what it took to be an engineer. Sawa sawa. If there are any of you who want to be a pastor, bishop, doctor, see Bishop Matara kwa hapa, ask him, what did it take to be that? What steps in life do I have to take to do that? Make a plan and get there, okay? Then finally, I want to end with the quotation we started before with, okay? I hope you remember it. If you sow a thought, what do you reap? An action, okay? If you sow an action, what do you reap? You sow a habit, you reap a? You sow a character, you reap a? So what do we do if we want to change our destiny? To change our? Sawa sawa. So make sure we change our thoughts. We are positive-minded, and those thoughts, let's base them on the Word of God. And I gave you something as simple as turn on morning devotion on YouTube when you're at home. Whatever affirmations you're given every morning, take those affirmations as your thoughts. Because sometimes we have so many negative thoughts, it's hard to counter them. Okay? Did any of you have any questions for me about maybe any choices that I made, things I could have done different? I don't know. Mko na maswali? You're quiet. You have a question? No? Okay. Questions? Teacher Ruth, do you have a question? No? Okay, Teacher Ruth has a question. Yeah. No, I think I liked going to. I've never been to a boarding school, so I don't know. I've been told about the horror stories of boarding school. But I like going to a day school because, so my father worked away from home for a very long time. But being in a day school, my mom and I have such a strong bond. Teacher Ruth, you've even seen it. We have such a strong bond. So looking back, I think I would still do the day school. Although my brother, funny enough, went to boarding school because he saw how much I studied, and he decided he would rather take his chances in boarding school because it would be easier for him there. Because, as I said, my mom is a tough disciplinarian, so he chose boarding school. So I think he liked boarding school. Yeah. So, thanks for the question. Maswali ingine? Take the opportunity to ask a question. Who wants to be an engineer? Okay. Which type? Aeronautics? Sawa sawa. Nikitaka ndege, I know who to go to. Who wants to be the president? Hiya, we are laughing. Who wants, you want to be the president? No, sawa. Who wants to be the president? I always ask because nataka kujua, so I know who to go to when they're president. These are things that you can be. Mkitaka kuwa president, very easy. Usianze kusema sahi, I want to be a president. Okay. Who wants to be a fashion designer? You want to be perfect. Sana Johnny, who will be coming to for my clothes? What else? What other things haven't I mentioned? Huh? I can't hear. You in the blue shirt with pink. What do you want to be? Yes. An accountant. I have someone to manage my money. Nani mwingine? Nani mwingine? Who wants to be a teacher? You want to be a teacher? Perfect. Okay. You have Teacher Ruth, you have Mom. You can talk to them about what it is, how it is to be a teacher. Lawyer? Perfect. Okay. Najua nani naleta na I'm bringing cases too. Who wants to be an MP? Governor? Hamtaki hizo? You know, it's good to be in those types of things, public service. Kwanza mkitoka kwa kanisa, then it means that the policies you're making are the right types of policies. Sawa sawa? Okay? Which one? Who wants to be a bishop? Hakuna mtu anataka kuwa bishop? Kwa nini? Bishop Matara, it looks like unafaa to motivate wakuwe bishop. Ni gani ingine? Nani anataka kuwa CEO? I don't know CEO of what. Who wants to be a CEO? We should all raise our hands to be CEO. Hamtaki kuwa CEO? Who wants to be a business owner? Perfect. Sawa sawa. Okay, that's good. So I hope you're tapping into people who want to be those things. Who wants to be a singer, actress, actor? Nice. Okay, sawa. Okay. Ni gani zingine? What do you want to be? Huh? Oh, I didn't see you raise your hand. Sawa. Una lawyer mwingine. Okay, how about you? Yes. A nurse. Wait, mnacheka kwa nini? Let me tell you, if there's a job that is between teaching and nursing, those jobs, to do them, it's a calling, because you do so much amazing work. Na ni kazi nyingi sana. That one, that's amazing. That's a very good. Hey, there's a special place in my heart for those people. So when you hear mtu anataka kuwa nurse, you know, you high five them, mama mnaambia congratulations. It's a very tough job to do. Sawa sawa. Nani mwingine? Maybe someone. The gentleman with the hoodie in the brown? An accountant? So we have a lot of people to manage. See, we'll all be rich. So tuna accountants wanatusaidia na pesa zetu. You want to aspire to have so much money, hata ujui pesa zako ziko wapi. So lazima ukuwe na money manager. So tuko na money managers hapa. Na wewe? Yes. A doctor? Which doctor? Sawa. Hiyo ni homework, uende ujue ni daktari mgani unataka kuwa. Okay, so we have a doctor and a nurse. Mnaweza anza hospitali. These are the types. These are the conversations we begin to have. When we were in Harvard, whenever you'd hear someone wants to do this, then, okay, let's talk about what type of business we want to start together. These are the types of, Msianze kuongea sijui social media niliona nani na nani. We have a doctor, we have a nurse. Let's start talking about tunaweza kuweka clinic hapa, tuanze Aga Khan yetu. They have these types of big dreams. Sawa sawa. You in the blue shirt, the gentleman? A businessman. What kind of business? We don't know yet. Sawa. Homework ni kufikiria ni gani unataka kuwa. Okay. The lady in the green? Accountant. Wow. I like this. Hey, Bishop Matara, when we make a lot of money, uko na watu wa kukuangalilia pesa sana. We have a lot of accountants. That's good. That's good. And you? Yes. A what? Ambassador. So you go to a different country, like a diplomat? Ah, nice. Any specific country? Zanzibar? Ah, it's a nice place to be. Now, diplomat, you know, you have to, it's good to enter with law. Unafanya law alafu na kuwa diplomat. Hiyo ni poa sana. Okay. Anyone else feel excited kutuambia wanafanya nini? Yes? Yeah, you. A doctor? Which one? Neurosurgeon? Hiyo ni kazi nyingi. Umesoma gifted hands? Okay. Ni kazi nyingi, but you're up for it. So start, you have the end in mind, start making a plan. And you next to her? I was like, oh, that's so good. Hiyo ni poa sana. Mental health is something that we don't do too well in. Psychologist or psychiatrist? Kuna ile unakuwa daktari? Psychologist? Okay. That's very good. Sawa sawa. And you? A what? Architect. Ah, that's nice. Sawa. Ningekwambia go look at Chicago, uangalie buildings na all the different architects huko. They are very good things. Kuna watu wako na mambo mengi huko sana. Sawa sawa. Yes, madam, and you? Computer science. Hiyo ni poa sana. That's a good one. So the good thing is you all have great and big and ambitious dreams, so that's amazing. For the ones who are business owners and don't know what type of business mwanze kufikiria ni gani, but if you don't have it figured out now, that's okay. Doctors, think about what type of medicine you want to specialize in. Sawa sawa. And then start talking to people around. Mjue, you are a doctor. Let me find out how you did this. Let me find out what you did in high school, in university. Start having those conversations. Start building mentors. Sawa sawa. I didn't make it to where I am without mentors, and I still continue to have mentors even right now. Okay, so make sure you have those. No more questions? No questions? Yes? Yes. So this is if you want to leave the country, sawa? In Kenya, it's what you do, how you do in KCSE. If you didn't do well in Form 1 and Form 2, you can begin, again, you can start from wherever you are to begin to improve your grades. So another thing is these universities just want to see that you're progressing. They understand that it's life and mistakes can be made. So if you just show them that there's progression, today you choose, I'm going to start getting better in my grades. Now waonyeshe I'm getting better in my grades. Then there's always a chance. So it's always about progressing. It's not about perfection, it's about progressing. So leo umejua hivyo, you maybe umesema unataka kutoka nje, then start doing what you can do to do better. Then the other thing is if your academics are not strong, because not all of us, our talents don't lie in academics alone. Sawa sawa. Start doing other things. Get involved in the community in some way. And then those people can write you a very good recommendation that they maybe look at even beyond your academics. Okay? So make sure you're all-rounded. But there's still a chance. Sawa sawa. Okay. That's a good question. Any other question? Let's clap for her because she was very courageous. Last question, if we have a question. Yes, Bishop. Okay. So that's a good question. So Bishop asks, he said that many people go over to the US and then they don't do so well over there. So what did I do so that I did well when I was there and I came back and I continued to do well? So I will tell you that moving to the US was, I think, one of the toughest things I did in my life. And for the first year, I wanted to come back to Kenya. Many times I was tempted to call my parents and tell them, I give up, I want to come back. But I knew how much effort they had put into raising money for my ticket, getting money to send me to school. So I couldn't tell them I've given up and I want to come back. Actually, the other day I was talking to Mom and telling her that, and she's like, "Oh, you should have called me and told me you want to come home." But I didn't want to give up and disappoint them. I think the things that kept me going, as I said, number one, and I was reading from like a book, but having principles, knowing what's important. I knew I went there to be a chemical engineer, and so I was not going to let anything get in the path of me being a chemical engineer. My extended family, I have a huge family, and the cousins who are around my age, my female cousins, most of them there are some who hadn't finished class 8, some hadn't finished Form 4, and they had kids. Some of them had 2 kids with different fathers and that type of thing. And so I never wanted that to be my story. So I never lied to myself that, oh, I'm better than them. No, I knew that if this could happen to that person, it could also happen to me. I need to make sure that I don't fall into that trap. So I had seen how things can go very badly for people if you don't make the right choices. And then I was very committed to becoming who I wanted to be, a chemical engineer. Then the other thing I did is I surrounded myself with friends who had the same goals that I had. So we were 3 Kenyan girls in the same school, only Kenyans, 3 Kenyan girls, and we all wanted to be chemical engineers. So we helped each other. We knew that we knew where we wanted to get to. We communicated goals to each other. So it was as simple as you see your friend going down the wrong path, unamwambia wewe, maybe don't do this, don't do that. There were times my friends called me out and they told me, Diana, you need to get back onto a better path. And the same thing, I would do the same thing for my friends. Because ukienda university, there are so many competing things. So we would help each other study, we would go to the library together, we would do projects together. So if it wasn't for those friends, because they became my family over there, I wouldn't be where I am. In America, you go and, unfortunately, there's a group of Kenyans, they get together and all they do is go out. Wanaanza Thursday, mpaka Sunday, all they're doing is going out. And I quickly, nikaona, that's not the type of company I want to keep up with, because with engineering, again, I didn't do much sleeping. So if all I'm doing is going out and drinking, then I'm not studying. If I go out and drink, I'm not studying, I'm failing in my classes. Sawa sawa. So it's just thinking about these things critically and thinking about the trade-offs. Well, those people that I avoided, they're still doing the same thing that they're doing, drinking and partying, and their lives haven't moved forward. And look at where I am. And I'm so glad I made the decisions that I did. And it's tough to make them at that point, because, you would rather go do fun things rather than do the hard. The hard things are the toughest to do. But I'm so glad I'm on this side. And as I said, I have so many choices in front of me. There are so many things I could do. You start making the wrong decisions when you're younger, and you close off your life. If I look at my cousins, the ones who had kids before they even finished Form 4, they don't have the skill set required to get good jobs. Sawa sawa. So they have limited choices. And you keep going that way and you make the wrong decisions. That's one thing people don't tell you. You make the wrong decisions that are easy, they continue to limit your life. So I never limited my life, so I'm able to keep my decisions open. Sawa sawa. So I think that's what kept that going. And of course, I told you my mom would call me every evening and tell me, Dano usipate mimba. So that would always be at the top of my mind too, that I didn't want to disappoint my mom and my dad because I love them so much. And then I also had my younger brother who looks up to me. He won't tell you this, but he does everything I do. He's also a chemical engineer. A year after I moved back to Kenya, he's now back. So I also felt that burden of being a firstborn, that I have to do better, I have to do well, because if I don't do well, then he won't do well. So those are some of the things that kept me going. Yeah. Does that answer it? But I know many of us, Mom and I talk about this a lot, and if people ask my mom, like parents, when they ask my mom whether they would send their child abroad, mom tells them, no, don't send them abroad, it's very tough. Even for me, when people ask me, should I go there and do my first degree, I will tell you, it's tough. I don't think I would repeat it again. I'm glad I did it, but it's tough. I won't lie to you, it's very tough. You go there, and as simple as your Kenyan accent, which is why I had to change how I speak. People would make fun of me and laugh at me all the time because of my Kenyan accent. They would laugh at me and the way I dressed. Like there was one time, I remember I was in class and this guy just started laughing at me because of the way I was dressed. And it was very normal to dress that way in Kenya. Nizi jeans are green and then they were whitewashed. It was a jean skirt and I had the jean jacket. And I guess that wasn't cool enough for people over there. So I had to change my accent and speak like an American because, there was a time I was in a chemistry class and I knew all the answers to the lab that we were doing. And then this white guy was like, oh my God, how are you so smart? And I told him, because I studied. And to him, he assumes that Africans are very dumb people. Nimeulizwa maswali like, how does it feel wearing clothes? Because they assume we don't wear clothes in Africa, that we're very backward. Others would ask me, how did I get to America? Because we don't have planes, because we live in the bush. And I would tell them, you know how Kenyans run very quickly? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, I ran so fast, I walked on water. Like some of them, they were just some stupid questions, and I would answer them that way. There was a time nilikuwa nimeweka, hair braids. And then I pulled one out because it was coming out, and one of my friends was like, oh my God, mzungu mwingine. And I was like, what's going on? You have cancer! And I'm like, what? Ati nywele yangu ni kuanguka inaanguka. So, it wasn't easy, and you face racism because of being black, you face racism because of being an African. It's not an easy place to be, but after a year, I stuck it out and I was good. So I think that's part of the reason why those people who don't make it, because you try so hard to fit in, and then I think as you're trying to fit in, you lose yourself. And when you lose yourself, you just find out, you find yourself, you don't recognize yourself. So it's not an easy place to go to. It's not an easy place to go to. And the types of decisions that you're making are very different from here. If Bishop will allow me to share this, because I know Dr. Karaoke will be talking about this. There was a get-together we had in university. The first one I had ever gone to, and my mom would never allow me to go to any get-together anywhere. I would just go to church, school, and home, 3 things. So I had no exposure. I was very, very isolated. And so at this get-together, I see 2 boys dancing, and then they start kissing. Wow, I think I ran out of that thing. Because I was so shocked. I had never seen anything like that happening before. It's unfortunate, but you see, so then those are some of the things you're exposed to, and then you have to start remembering, what are my principles, what have I been taught? Because these things happen, and they happen right there in front of you, and in America, these things are very okay. And you have to choose how to behave in those types of situations. There was a time I walked into one of the dorm rooms, and I found people in bad positions. And I remember I screamed, ran out, and fell. And my friends were laughing at me because I was so innocent and I hadn't encountered these types of things. But they're the things you encounter in university, and you have to choose. You have to make tough decisions about, is this the life I want to lead, or which life do I want to lead? Which path do I want to go down? And as I said, the path of following what everyone else is doing is always the easiest. But as I keep saying, take it from me, the other side of making the right decisions is so good. Like next year, I'm planning to go for the Harvard Business School 5-year reunion. I'm so excited for that. We have so many activities we're doing. They're even going to have a ball where I dress in a ball gown. My husband will be in a tuxedo and we go and do all these different dances. I have people in my class who, one wants to be the president of the United States, another one wants to be the president of a country called Georgia, another one wants to be the president of Colombia. And I want to keep up with these people because when they become presidents in these countries, I have a bakery. I sell bread, but I want to do other things in manufacturing. Let's say one day I want to have a manufacturing business in Georgia. There's a country called Georgia. If I want to have a manufacturing business in Georgia, I just call my friend up and be aware, let's make a deal, because we were friends in class. So I'm going to go network and do all these things. So as I said, this other side of making the right types of decisions is so good because the world is limitless for me. And when I asked you guys who wants to be the president, Mecheka, but any of you can be the president. Start thinking about taking things on like that. Sawa sawa. So I have people, even my friends were like, you should be president of Kenya. I personally don't want to do it for other reasons. I think I can impact the community in other ways. But as I said, because I have made the right types of decisions, the world is limitless. And the last thing I think I want to talk about is with social media and the things that we are posting. I thank God I wasn't a teenager when social media was around. But the thing that's happening now with social media is your mistakes are being posted everywhere on the web. And they don't get lost. If you ever ask, like in America sorry, I have a friend who actually wants to be, one of the ones who wants to be a president of America, because it's two of them. He decided that he was going to get married very young because he knew that without that stability of a wife, he could make the wrong decisions. And when they're vetting him to be president, they'll find all these things. So he said, I'm going to start a family early just so that I'm responsible. So these are some of the things. Some of these things that you're trying to be later on, you're saying you want to be a lawyer. Then one day when you go to a company and they're checking you on Google, they find all these different pictures. Because whenever you're hiring for people, you go Google them, unatafuta ni nini, what are they doing, what's going on their Facebook, on their Instagram, do you want this person to join you? So please think about what you're posting and putting out there. It doesn't get lost. And make sure that the decisions that you're making right now when you're so young are not going to impact who you want to be. And then pia kumbuka, like yesterday we were talking about this, I was showing my mom's friend the influencers or the socialites we have in Kenya, and she was so shocked. And these now socialites are beginning to have kids. How will they discipline watoto wao vipi when they have so much trash out there on social media? So even think about that. When you become parents, what type of role model would you have been when you were a kid? Like for me, with my kids, I can be very tough with them, naniwambie, I followed the right path. Even you follow the right path. Will you be able to say the same thing for the next generation coming? Or utaficha mambo ile umefanya because you don't want your kids to know who you used to be. Okay? So make the right decisions. You have a limitless, your opportunities are limitless. Make wrong decisions and your opportunities become very limited. Sawa sawa. And as I said, you're now grown enough, you can make your own choices. You can make your wrong choices. All we can do is advise you here, and it's up to you to make the right types of decisions. Okay. Yes. Oh, how's my experience in South Africa? Oh, wow, that was one of my best times. I was there 4 years ago. I worked there for 2 months. So I was based in South Africa, but I would fly to Botswana for work, where the diamonds were. South Africa is an amazing country. It's a second world country. It's like living in America and living in Kenya at the same time. There are very rich parts and very poor parts. The people are amazing people. The culture is amazing. The food is great. It was a great time living there, and it's also more advanced than it is in Kenya. The thing that was sad but also good, good to understand is you guys have heard about apartheid and how like Nelson Mandela was in prison for a long time and how it's still really bad for black people over there. It still is. I actually went to Nelson Mandela's house. You see his bed. I went to Desmond Tutu's house too. I went to Robben Island where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned, and you see his cell, you see his spoon, the spoon that he used. Actually, let me tell you a quick story. So when we went to Robben Island, the prison, the people who give you the tour are former prisoners. And one of the prisoners, so he was the one giving us the tour, he told us there was this time he was rebelling against a guard. So what the guard told him to do was to dig a hole, and he was told to get into the hole, and they covered him up to his head. And so that was the punishment he was given for talking back to a guard. And then he told them, he's there out in the yard and it's very hot and he's thirsty. He asked for water. So what happened is the guard peed on him. Alimkojolea, ati hiyo ndio maji yako. So then this guy was telling us later when apartheid was taken away, that thing still stuck to him because kukojolewa, it's so humiliating for that to happen to you. So he looked for that guard later on when apartheid had gone away. So he looked for that guard, and akaenda nakam, he forgave the guard. He told him, I forgive you, I don't carry this bitterness around. Now these days, I think once a week, him and the guard's family, they have dinner, and they started reconciling, and they've let go of that past bitterness. So he was being proactive, right? He made a choice to let go of all of that and forgive him. I don't know whether, hey, I think it takes, I don't know what would, if I was in the same position, what I would do. But South Africa is great. I would recommend it even if you want to go study there, you want to go spend time there. But you see, like, I was able to go to South Africa and I have that type of story, and I was able to be around these types of people. So my options were limitless. And I have so many other stories I could tell you. So please, please, please make the right choices. Huku kote mnataka kuenda, it's very easy to go to places like that. Like I have a friend, she's studying international nursing and she goes to South Africa to take her exams. So she's going to South Africa in May to take her exams. Na tunachekelea nursing, na tupeleka South Africa. So let's not look down on different things. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah? Yes. Mm-hmm. No, so my experience in America, of course, would not find in Kenya. And yes, it was worth it. It was worth it because I guess I came out the other side well. The reason I just caution people and tell them it's hard, and that's why I say count the cost and think about the price it takes to go over there. The things, let me say that you can still do your first degree here in Kenya and be very okay, and go do your second degree in America. So in terms of education, you can still get your education. You can get your education Kenya there, still the same. But of course, in terms of like being on my own and being independent and not having my parents right there to help me through things, I'm a very independent person coming out of that experience. So that's what I would say you wouldn't get out of just staying in Kenya because they're right there. But education-wise, I think you'd be in a good spot if you still continue to study here. Yeah. So yeah. But it was worth it. It was worth it because it worked out. So that's what I would say. Did I answer your question? Okay. Yes. Yeah, so scholarships are hard to find. Schools have scholarships. The school that you're applying to, they have scholarships they give you. And then it's as simple as, gosh, how did I go about finding scholarships? I looked at them on websites. Just look for college scholarships. There are different types. They are merit-based, like based on academics, based on sports, based on community work. just look through all those different ones and see which one can fit you. I would say if it's very tough for you, like the background you come from is tough, don't go for top tier. Like Harvard is very expensive to go to. I did get a scholarship to go to Harvard in graduate school, but I wouldn't recommend it for undergraduate. It's very expensive. But like the one I went to was a lot cheaper. It's called Worcester Polytechnic, but even that is a bit more expensive, and I got a scholarship. So there are other colleges you can go to that are cheaper. And whatever education you get from whatever university, you'll be in good hands. So. But it's researching them. Go online and start looking. Yes? Yeah, so the reason so he asked me as an engineer, why did I choose to go to Harvard rather than MIT? So I told you my dad is an engineer, I'm an engineer, my brother is an engineer. What I found about engineers is we are smart people, but we tend to think in a closed-minded way. We are given a way to think, and that's the only way we think, unfortunately. You learn this. I'm not saying it in a bad way, but if you look at people who are leading companies, like CEOs, even if you look at leaders of countries, they don't come from engineering backgrounds, because we are taught how to solve technical problems, but not world problems. So the reason I say that is, even with my dad, like my dad has been a technical engineer all through, he didn't go into management. But I knew I didn't want to stay as a technical engineer. I wanted to manage people and work with people. And you look at the people who go on to manage companies, they come from finance and marketing and those types of things. So I had already gone to an engineering college when I was in my first degree. I'd already done an engineering college. Because you always look at your CV and how you're building your CV. If I went to another engineering college for my business, and this was for my business degree, and MIT has a great business program. If I went to another engineering college for my business program, then people would always think of me as an engineer, but I didn't want them to think of me as an engineer. I wanted to think of me as a problem solver, as a person who can solve world problems. And Harvard Business School, you never think of Harvard as engineering or technical. You think of it as law and business, right? Or medicine. So by going to Harvard Business School, I opened up my CV where I wasn't limited to just being an engineer. People look at me as doing other things. Like part of the reason I get to speak here today, maybe if I went to MIT, maybe Bishop would tell me, go talk to just the engineers. He wouldn't tell me talk to everyone, okay? So this one just broadened my possibilities. So I'm so glad now you finally warmed up and you're asking questions. So in the interest of time, Bishop, maybe one more question? Okay. One last question? None? Okay, I think you've asked all the questions. Okay, thank you so much.
Diana in a better way. So I know we have all heard what she has communicated to us. And like I said again, it's not only for students. Like me, I've learned about the 4 personalities. Can we remind ourselves? The 4 personalities. Number 1, a procrastinator. I remind you. Number 2, the yes man. Number 3, the slacker. And finally, the prioritizer. And we all aim to be there so that we are able to plan and get where we want to be. We set our goals, we start from the end, and now we are able to plan well. Sister Diana, we are very, very grateful. All what you have done in life, like you have said, it is impacting generations. I know they have picked a lot. If at all, I've been able to pick very many things, even them, because they have a bigger future than us, we can say. I know they have picked a lot. And it is not a waste of time. I know. These things she has said, she has given experiences right from primary, high school, all the way. So I know that they have learned a lot, and may the Lord continue adding unto you and also impacting the community. That is one she has finished by telling us, let us always learn to impact the community. So also for the interest of time, we have spent our time well. It's lunchtime. I'm going to urge us, after we pray, we just go and get our lunch, and within 30 minutes, I know we are students, so we are able to work with the 30 minutes so that we are back for the other sessions. This day was compressed so that we are not having 2 days. Therefore, let's utilize all the time that we have well. Who is going to pray for food? You pray. Our prefect. Yes, please hurry up for the interest of